all about how we are revolutionizing how businesses connect across their partner ecosystem with our B2B integration solution. We presented this topic and shared Mad Engine's story of success with this at Dreamforce in September. And since then, our partners and customers have been abuzz about what the solution can do. And we've gotten many requests for another session on this. So we're excited to be able to do just that today. If you missed it at Dreamforce, we're back with an inside look at how Mad Engine has transformed their order-to-cash processes with their partners using MuleSoft's API-led integration strategy and the Anypoint Partner Manager solution. After that, we will take a look at the upcoming features we are launching on our Anypoint Partner Manager as we continue to innovate. And hey, thanks to Vijayan, we have an awesome demo for you all as well. So let's get into it. Now, B2B partnerships are what makes the world go round, right? So first, let's take a moment about and talk about the importance of the supply chain. Now, customers like you and I, we love to scroll online, right? On our phones, we're on there all day. And that leads us to finding things we want to buy, especially with the holidays here again. It's a convenience consumer culture. Say that 3 times fast. It's what we live in. And, you know, we're online. You've got limitless options delivered right to your door after a few clicks. And it just arrives, arrives a day or two later. And in many cases, you can even get it same day. And I know it feels like magic. It feels like we're just making wishes to our fairy godmother with how fast we can get things nowadays, but it's not. How we make that happen is actually the supply chain. So let's talk through the journey behind that. Now, let's say we're online and we find a t-shirt that we gotta have and we order it. Well, before it's at our doorstep, well, it was manufactured somewhere, perhaps overseas, and it's shipped off on a cargo boat, arrives here domestically, and is routed towards the Amazon warehouse or fulfillment center, right? And that's where a shipment delivery company then works with that fulfillment center to get them on a truck and sends them on the route, which ultimately leads them right to your doorstep at your home. Now, that journey, it's made up of a network of buyer and seller relationships. In retail, you've got Target and Walmart sourcing beauty products from organizations like L'Oreal, Johnson & Johnson, what have you. In manufacturing, you've got auto manufacturers needing auto parts. And in healthcare, the CVS and Walgreens of the world, they need to procure things like vaccines from Pfizer and over-the-counter drugs for their pharmacies and on their shelves, right? Now, these types of partnerships, of course, they're never, ever monogamous. They're one-to-many. And what do I mean by that? Well, Bose Electronics, they're not just going to be supplying, let's say, Best Buy with their electronics. They're also going to be sending them to Walmart, to GameStop, and more, right? And during this process, partners are sending thousands and even millions of transactions daily to be able to fulfill these orders so that those products can get to their stores or to the fulfillment centers, right? You've got inventory transactions, order requests and acknowledgements, shipment and payment notifications, and on and on and on. Thousands and millions of transactions going between buyer and seller. Now, to make this even more complex, we can't forget the third cog in the wheel here, transportation and logistics. They also play an important role in this partner ecosystem because buyers and sellers, they need to make sure that the product gets shipped to the fulfillment center, distributor, or store, right? So all three need to work together simultaneously to fulfill the supply chain cycle on a daily basis. Now, all of the transactions between these partners, they're either handled by electronic data interchange or EDI, which is the standardized format and method of sending these types of B2B transactions, or they're handled via APIs. Now, as you all know, organizations are prioritizing digital transformation. And they're taking a cloud-first strategy for their core systems. Now, as they transform, they are moving more and more away from traditional integration methods, and they're taking an API-first approach to bring their systems together into that composable application network. And initially, the primary focus has been their core internal system integrations. But through the process of transformation, enterprises realize the need to extend their application network and integrate beyond the four walls of their enterprises to integrate with external business partner ecosystems, right? On one end, you have the standardization of B2B integrations via EDI, which has helped organizations be more efficient, and it's here to stay. But at the same time, organizations are also connecting with their partners through APIs. But whether it's via EDI or APIs, businesses, they're looking for the best strategy for them to manage and maintain their B2B integrations as their partner ecosystems continue to grow. And they want to do it all under a single pane of glass, right? And that is what MuleSoft's Anypoint Partner Manager has been built to help enterprises with. Why do we have the solution? Really, it's to simplify all of the different transactions and languages between buyer and supplier so that they can connect and transact with each other. And today we're going to talk about how with this solution, you're really streamlining your partner connectivity and making onboarding partners much more efficient. And the other important piece here is the ability to unlock important business insights as you collaborate and communicate with those in your ecosystem. So we're going to talk about that today. So let's double click and learn a bit more about how Partner Manager can help. And we're going to bring that to life for you with the story of Mad Engine and how they've been firing on all cylinders with the Anypoint Partner Manager solution. I'm going to start off with a little overview of Mad Engine here. That's such a great video. I love that. Now I'd like to welcome Gary Gaffney. He is the EVP of Technology and Systems at Mad Engine. All right, so I've stopped sharing my screen, Gary. I know you want to pull up and take the controller here.
You guys see that okay now? We're good, Sarah?
Looks good. Looks good.
All right. Thank you, Sarah. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to share the Mad Engine MuleSoft experience with you today. Mad Engine is a global leader in consumer apparel and accessories with 14 offices across the globe and over 150 leading global licenses, including Disney and Warner Brothers. We offer merchandise for anyone and everyone through a full range of private label, branded apparel, and influencer products. Our customers range from mass market retailers to independent boutiques and to you, the consumer. We've been recognized by Walmart and Target as Supplier of the Year. And internationally, our art gets recognized as being a leader in innovation. Our innovation is really geared towards bridging the gap between our licensors' content and our customer sales opportunities. And this innovation is driven through our vertical supply chain with end-to-end production, our print-on-demand technology for direct-to-consumer sales, our zero inventory fast turn methodology for inventory management, strategic licensor rights, innovative art creation, and speed to market. Well, as you know, with growth comes change, and with change came challenges. So as we grew, we started to run into some major challenges. And before our transformation, we started to target those challenges. And our first major challenge was our legacy ERP and our EDI platform with complex SOAP API interfaces. Well, what's an API? We all know APIs to be application interfaces. They're tools that allow us to share information between our applications. Well, what's a SOAP API? I like to use a language analogy because I think it really builds a picture well. So if I only speak English and Sarah only speaks Spanish, we need a translator. We need someone to help us communicate. So I speak in English. If Jayon would communicate that to Sarah in Spanish, she would communicate that back to him in Spanish and him back to me in English. Essentially, it's an import-export process which creates latency in your application stack as information can't move as quickly as it needs to. Second, we ran into disjointed technologies. We had some technology that supported REST, which we'll talk about later, other that supported SOAP, some technology that really didn't leverage any of that, which actually prevented us from doing implementations or integrations that would streamline our business. This created slower time to market, as well as a lack of agility and scalability in our application stack. And finally, we had a lot of complicated point-to-point API integrations. This was most true in our asset management system, where all those beautiful assets lie, where all the licensing approvals sit. We have 5 separate integrations with 5 different applications downstream, which creates increased operational overhead. So what did we do to address these challenges? Well, in the words of Disney, the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. And so what did we do to rev up our engines? We chose MuleSoft's Anypoint Partner Manager. And our strategy really revolved around 3 agile steps. First, we leveraged the reusable building blocks to accelerate our partner onboarding by almost 30%. What are these building blocks? They are essentially just REST endpoints that we can use and leverage. So as we build a new customer's requirements out, we can take the requirement for Kohl's and simply tweak it for Target. That helps us get customers onboarded and tested more rapidly. Second, the simplified messaging, transformation, routing, and workflows. These flexible, intuitive workflows transform and route complex EDI messages with data weave. We're also able to use those workflows in the same manner as the building blocks. We can copy them and reuse them and manipulate them specific to a trading partner. And finally, real-time visibility and efficient operational management. The real-time order processing and visibility shares and unlocks core business information across the organization, literally reducing our latency from hours to seconds. Well, what does this transformation look like? So our approach to the automated cash infrastructure first was to replace our legacy ERP with Dynamics 365 F&O. Our second step was to reimagine EDI as we knew it with REST API-led architecture. Now, earlier in our conversation, we talked about SOAP APIs. So what is a REST API and how is it different? If we use that same language analysis, I will now talk to Sarah back and forth as if we're bilingual in real time and eliminate that translator. No longer are we importing or exporting, we're communicating directly. So as ANSI X12 purchase orders are transmitted to us from our customers, we receive those purchase orders in the experience layer, which then pushes those to our PO process layer. The PO process layer pings our Dynamics endpoint to validate both the order, customer, and products, and in turn sends an outbound purchase order acknowledgement to confirm the order with our customer and the products that they've ordered, and or if there's any cancellations that are appropriate based on what they asked for. In turn, that same process layer pushes it to our system layer, which creates those orders in our Zift application, zero inventory, fast turn. Zift is our manufacturing as a service that actually manages the production. It in turn pushes that information to our ERP system for visibility. Zift will now produce and manage the shipment of that product directly to our customer. And upon shipment, it will then update Dynamics, which triggers our outbound workflow. We will then transmit through the shipment API all of the outbound information that's relevant. This might include a routing request as well as the inbound routing instructions that comes within 24 hours. But ultimately, we will send out the advanced ship notice, which will confirm shipment with the customer. And upon invoicing, it will leverage the invoice process API to bill the customer as well as our factor. What's really important about the immediacy of this is that our customer gets billed rapidly, which means we get paid quicker, which really impacts our cash flow amazingly. While all of these transactions are flowing through our system, we are tracking it through the Exchange API. If there's any errors that occur, key stakeholders are notified immediately so they can address the issue. In addition, we're tracking all of that information in our Power BI dashboard platform for manageability of that information and analytics. At the end of the day, how did this transformation impact our business? Well, we now are able to rapidly deploy new customers, which leads to increased sales. We have real-time order visibility and management. Our standard licensing agreement has improved immensely with our customers. We've reduced our overall development costs. We've eliminated those disjointed systems, and we've increased our speed to market. And ultimately, what we've done is created an agile, scalable application stack that we can now grow with and build off of. Our ability to rapidly develop and bring on board new customers has been impacted immensely. So where do we go from here? Well, as we talked about, our first project was really to build this B2B EDI integration via the Anypoint platform. We've recognized a 50% increase in end-to-end throughput. And I think that's going to continue to get better as we continue to optimize and learn, from what we're doing, we're getting better at it. In addition, we've seen a 20% improvement with our SLA metrics with our customers, which is significant. Happy customers buy more, and that leads to more opportunities. Our next step, really, or project 2, is to continue to identify and eliminate those point-to-point integrations. In the model I showed you just a few minutes ago, the Zift in the D365 implementation is still a point-to-point. There's things we can do to optimize and even improve that as we continue to analyze it. And the real key is to build a many-to-one middleware to streamline our core application integrations. The next thing really is to implement, eliminate cost, standardize our IPA or our information process authority. That's been really important in this process, is where should information be stored, and then how do we strategically share it within our application stack to improve our workflow and maximize what we're doing. Finalize it, minimize our timelines, and increases our speed to market. From a technology standpoint at MadEngine, we really are targeting 3 things that we look at whenever we're thinking about investment or innovation. And that's really, how do we increase our visibility? How do we increase our accountability? And how do we increase our speed to market? If we continue to keep our eye on those 3 things, we will continue to be a leader in the marketplace. With that, I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to hand it off to Vijayan now. Vijayan, I've unshared, so you should be good now.
For sharing the awesome transformation story. There's a lot of great elements for people to kind of learn from the experiences that Madigen has gone through. Going to start sharing my screen here. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. So I'm Vijayan. I lead the strategy and execution for our B2B integration product portfolio here at MuleSoft. And in this little section, I'm going to kind of talk less about things that we're doing. So starting off with some of the recent innovations that we have delivered on the Anypoint Partner Manager product, starting with the support for CSV and delimited file format. As we know, the EDA standards like X12 and Edifact are widely used across the globe. But at the same time, there are a lot of organizations using CSV and delimited files to exchange business transactions with their partners. And also CSV is still used in internal systems that are getting the business transactions flowing within the four walls of the organizations. So this support basically opens a lot of possibilities within Anypoint Partner Manager, where you can receive an EDA data, convert that into CSV using the same consistent low-code experience that the product has been always offering, in addition to XMLs and JSON. And you can also receive a CSV and convert it into another CSV. There is a lot of permutations and combinations that are now possible with this new innovation that was delivered into Partner Manager. The second and one of the most anticipated features of this release is the transaction replay, especially B2B integration platforms. They have a very niche element associated to them. They are connected with a different set of backend systems, and they're also connected with hundreds and thousands of partners on the outside world. So things can go wrong, like somebody may have an issue on any given point of time. And when things go wrong, you don't want to necessarily bother your backend systems or your hundreds of partners to resend data that you may have lost in transit, or you have a mapping chain that you want to run the data through. So this feature allows organizations to take self-service management aspects of reprocessing transactions when needed. It's not just failed transaction, you can also replace a successful transaction if there is a need to do so. And the last and the most recent one is the ability to deploy Partner Manager runtime applications to Runtime Fabric into Kubernetes clusters on clouds like Amazon EKS. So it basically opens up the ability for deploying Partner Manager in locations with close proximity to your application stack. And also there are a lot of customers with stringent regulatory and data residency requirements that need their B2B integration workloads to be running in a infrastructure that they get to manage versus managed by a third-party company like an iPaaS platform. So there is a lot more that is going to be coming over the next few months. So stay tuned for the upcoming innovations, but we just wanted to kind of share some of the ones that we have recently delivered within the product. And with all these innovations coming to fruition, so this is just a quick snapshot of where the product is today. So there's a lot of EDA formats like X12 or Edifact. There are also formats like Wix and UCS used in retail and grocery industries. So we continue to add more and more data formats into Partner Manager. And we also do support a wide variety of transfer protocols. And there is also a lot of possibilities where you can manage your B2B partner endpoints using API Manager if you're exposing HTTP-based endpoints to your partners and you want to apply policies and other things by taking advantage of the Anypoint platform's universal API management capabilities. So with that said, we have a demo that is going to cover a number of these new innovations that have been delivered through the product in recent times. And we'll play that for you. And we'll start taking questions as they come on the Q&A section. Hi there, my name is Jain Kanapati, and I'm from MuleSoft's product management team. In this video, we will look at some of the new features within Anypoint Partner Manager, including the support for CSV in delimited file formats, transaction replay, and runtime fabric deployments to deploy B2B integration workloads into Kubernetes clusters. Starting off with a quick context of the demonstration, we have a fictional manufacturing company called Mythical Supplier that uses SAP as their ERP and Slack as their engagement channels internally. And they have a well-defined API architecture where they have a process API that orchestrates the creation of sales orders in SAP and sends messages to the sales teams through Slack. Mythical Supplier does business with a broader set of customers across the globe, so they have to support a variety of EDI and non-EDI message formats, including X12, Edifact, XML, JSON, and CSV files. And we'll see how they are able to use Anypoint Partner Manager to receive messages from their customers, perform validations, acknowledgements, transformation, and routing to send the order information to the downstream processes to orchestrate the order-to-cash automation. We will more specifically focus on three broader categories in this demonstration, starting off with how they're able to use runtime fabric deployment options to deploy their B2B integration workloads on AWS Elastic Kubernetes Service clusters. We will also look at how they are able to do business with XYZ suppliers that sends order information in CSV file format. And we'll also see how they are able to replay transactions that require reprocessing in the event of any system failure or otherwise. We'll also get a glimpse of how they're able to engage with external B2B customers by surfacing their EDI and non-EDI API specifications through a public portal using Anypoint API Experience Hub. We'll first look at how Mythical has configured their runtime fabric cluster to deploy B2B integrations into their AWS Elastic Kubernetes service. We are in Mythical Supplier's runtime manager in the Anypoint platform. And from the runtime fabrics page, we are able to see that they have an active cluster named RTF prod 202 running in their environment, which is actually, as we can see here, it's hosted on Amazon's AWS Elastic Kubernetes service. And this particular cluster has been associated with the environment UAT RTF, where we are deploying these B2B integration processes. So since this cluster is available, we are now going to look at how we can configure the deployment target from access management. So from the business groups page within access management, you navigate to the Mythical 3 business group and navigate to the Partner Manager tab where you get to configure your new environment. In this business group, there are 4 environments. 3 of them have been configured to deploy to CloudHub, and this UAT RTF environment has been configured to deploy to Runtime Fabric. So the experience of configuring your deployment target is pretty simplified. So from the environment page, you select between CloudHub 1 or Runtime Fabric. So here we have selected Runtime Fabric, and we get to see all the clusters that are available for this environment that we are configuring the setup. So as we have seen in the previous page, the RTF prod 202 cluster is something that is already active on this environment, and that has been selected as the target RTF cluster. You also get to configure your runtime version, and Partner Manager uses Anypoint MQ to pass some identifiers for transaction replay, and you get to choose which Anypoint MQ region you want to use. And from the Applications tab, you can configure the prefix with which you want the apps to be deployed. If you want to apply ingress controls and other routing rules based on those prefixes, you have the ability to do that. And Partner Manager requires customers deploying their runtime applications to RTF clusters to provide the connection information for a self-hosted ActiveMQ JMS broker, and you'll be configuring the connection information right here. So when all of these is set up, your environment is now ready for using Partner Manager. And now we are going to the Anypoint Partner Manager, where you get to see that this environment has been configured to deploy to Runtime Fabric. So next thing that we'll be seeing now is how we can configure CSV message types in this environment. Configuring a CSV or XML or X12 or Edifact message types is all very, very consistent. So you'll be selecting the usage as received from partners because we are expecting a CSV-based purchase order coming from XYZ Supplies, one of the customers that we are onboarding. You will select CSV, set your separator characters. If you want to change from comma to pipe or vice versa, you can make those configuration selections following simplified experience in this form, and you'll be naming the message type with a meaningful name, and you'll be importing a reference mapping to help with the routing of the CSV messages. In this environment, we already have a CSV message type that is configured and deployed. So if you look at this message type, it has been named as inbound source purchase order CSV with a reference mapping that is set to extract some additional attributes such as the purchase order number from the CSV payload that will be coming from the customers using this message type. Let's now look at how customers can leverage Anypoint Platform's broader universal API management features to augment the way they engage with their B2B partners to exchange business transactions. As we have seen in the context of this use case, Mythical Supplier receives orders in different message standards and formats from customers across different geographies, which includes receiving Edifact, CSV, X12, XML, and JSON type of messages. You can consider these message types as your object in an API design. So now let's go to Anypoint Platform's Design Center, where Mythical has designed an API for their B2B orders. This is a standard RAML-based API specification design where there are different types of messages that have been defined, including the purchase order XMLs, JSONs, and CSVs as the supported message types. And there are different resources that have been configured, including the inbound purchase order XMLs, the purchase order JSONs, CSV, and also you can define to receive an EDI X12 message using this content type, also through the same API endpoint and also Edifact. So this API design has been published to their Anypoint Exchange instance, from where you can document your API specifications with more information. And here we are in Anypoint Exchange, where we are going to look at how this API has been documented with more useful information. And you can also navigate to different operations of that API right here in the screen with a lot of examples published, just like how a potential consumer of this API would interact and interface with this API. And when the API is fully documented and available in Exchange, the next step would be to add that API and create an instance for that API in API Manager. So in this environment, we already have an instance of this API created and set up. So from API Manager, you can create SLA tiers if you want to restrict the number of calls that you get from different segments of your customers to based on their relationship that you have with them. You can define those things, and you can also apply different policies to protect your API instance. So there is just a lot of features that you can take advantage of for protecting your B2B order API endpoint. So once the API is actually the instance is created in API Manager, you actually do have an API instance ID that you would be using in Partner Manager on a HTTP receive endpoint to deploy your actual runtime application instance that will act as the API listener for your interface. So we now have this API instance ID. And if we go back to Partner Manager, so you would basically be configuring that as a receive from partners endpoint and select HTTPS as the protocol. So you can give it a meaningful name. And then you would be basically selecting the option to manage that API with API Manager and be putting that instance ID to create that connection. So when you deploy your first message flow from Partner Manager, it deploys a HTTP inbound application and registers that against that API instance in API Manager. So in this environment, we already have that an API HTTP endpoint created and deployed. So it's registered against this API instance ID that we have in API Manager. And as you can see here, this is actually running on this application since there is an active message flow deployed using this endpoint configuration. There's this application ending with 065. And if you go back to your runtime manager and applications, there are a bunch of applications with that UAT prefix that we saw in the configuration that are deployed automatically by Partner Manager when you have active message flows deployed against those configurations. So we have this inbound X065 endpoint that is running, which is actually registered against this API instance, and hence we see that status of that API is showing as active. And the next logical step here is to navigate to API Experience Hub, where you can browse through all the APIs that are available in your exchange and add them to the public portal. So in this example, we already have the B2B Order API added to the public portal. So the consumers or the users of this portal can actually browse through the catalog of APIs and look at the specifications of your message types and the resources in a very easy way. And here is the publicly accessible instance of that API portal, where we can see that there is the B2B Order API that is available for potential customers and consumers to view. And they can go through that documentation that we saw in Anypoint Exchange. And they can also go through the API specification to understand the different types of message formats that are supported. So we'll look at the CSV that we are going to be sending shortly into that environment as part of our demonstration. So you can go through that, and you can see that the API is expecting a client ID and secret. You can interface with this API's mocking service, and it is already set with the appropriate content type. And you also get to see an example of the data that this API accepts, and you can send it connecting with the mocking service. And you can also, on the same lines, you can navigate to the different options that are available. So if you want to explore the X12 850 option, so you already have some of these examples and the content type. So you know exactly how this API endpoint behaves in real term. So consumers can start building their processes to interact with that API instance. So we'll now log in as XYZ Supplies, who is one of Mythical's customers, to look at the kind of experience that they have. So now I'm logging in as XYZ Supplies, and they can go through the APIs that are available. They can browse through the different APIs. They can go into the order API that we are looking at, and they can browse through the specifications, and they can also request access. Can create, select the instance that they want to work with, create a client application, and also select the tier in which they want to sign up to get access to this API for. So they already have a client application created and approved. So they have a couple of client applications. So they have the credentials that they can look at to actually work with that API. And we'll now quickly look at how XYZ Supplies as a partner has been configured in Partner Manager, and how their inbound purchase orders and outbound purchase order acknowledgement message flows for CSV are configured in the environment. So we're in the partners page in Anypoint Partner Manager, and we are going into XYZ Supplies. And you can also look at their contacts and put their logos, so you have all the information about that customer handy when there is a need to contact them. And since they're not using any X12 or Edifact, they're just an CSV-based exchange. So they just have one reference identifier that uniquely identifies XYZ Supplies. And in the message flows page, you have an inbound purchase order CSV and an outbound purchase order acknowledgement CSV flow for this customer. We're going into the inbound CSV flow. So the experience of creating a message flow, whether it's you're creating a message flow for CSV or X12, Edifact, or JSON or XML, it is very consistent. So you are basically presented with a wizard where you make 4 choices. So first one being how do you expect the data to come in? So this is nothing but the HTTP receive endpoint that is running on this API, which is exactly the API that instance that is that has been exposed through the portal for XYZ supplies and other customers to interact with this API. The next step is to select the message type. So this could be an XML, Edifact. So here in this example, we have selected the inbound source purchase order CSV as the source message type that is going to be coming from the customer. So when they post the message to that endpoint, they have to basically post it to the base URL of that endpoint, followed by the message type as the relative path. So now as the message comes in, we are translating that CSV into a JSON. So this is a standard data view mapping to convert the CSV file into a JSON message structure that we build graphically using Anypoint Studio. And the next step is to kind of tell Partner Manager, what do I do with the translated JSON message? So it needs to be sent to this process API that in turn sends down to the SAP system API and the Slack system API to create the order and send a notification. So this is another API that is running on the Anypoint platform that receives the translated JSON message, orchestrates the creation of the sales order in SAP. So now this message flow is already deployed, and we have these runtime applications ready to process transactions coming from customers in real time. All right, so now we are acting as the customer XYZ Supplies, who is actually posting this inbound source purchase order CSV message with the message specification that has been published and made available through the API portal with the appropriate content type and the client ID and secret. So let's send this message out. So now we just got the 202 accepted response. And if you look at the HTTP response code, you would have gotten a unique Partner Manager transmission ID that is coming back from that HTTP endpoint. If we go to the Slack and we have a message that came just about now with this PO number, and it already has created a sales order in SAP. And we are now in SAP where we are searching for that order number. We see that order with that same PO number that we saw that was sent from Postman, and 4 different items of different quantities. It's all the data and the order getting created in SAP. And now we are back in Partner Manager, where if you go to the activity page, you get to see the 2 transactions. One is the order and the other is the order acknowledgement. So you can navigate to the CSV purchase order message in the environment where you get to see the order number at the top, click the source payload to view the CSV file, and click the target file to look at the translated JSON message after it went through the data view transformation and sent to the process API. You can also copy this transmission ID and search for this transmission end-to-end using Anypoint monitoring. So I'm just going to put that transmission ID in the log search in monitoring. And you see that the message was originally received by this inbound HTTP endpoint application that is actually managed with API Manager. And you can actually trace the transaction from start to finish, including the call going to the order process API, and the call to the SAP system API to create the sales order, and then eventually the sales order getting created in SAP successfully. And let's now send a couple more transactions. So it's going to automatically create a new PO number every time a transaction is sent. With the way this Postman is set up, in real world, the orders will be coming from the procurement systems of XYZ with unique order numbers every single time. And now in Slack, we are getting kind of messages pretty much instantaneously as these orders are getting processed and created in SAP. Let's say, for example, let's pick this order number. We can take advantage of the custom message attribute feature that is available in Partner Manager, where you can configure which fields in the transaction payloads that you want to extract. So now we're going to be searching for the PO number with this value, and it's going to bring up all the associated transactions, including the orders and the order acknowledgement, shipment, invoices, or anything for that matter in a single search. So that covers the CSV message processing capabilities. All right, so next we're going to look at the transaction replay capabilities and see how Mythical is able to manage the operational aspects of B2B transaction processing. As we see here, there have been 5 transactions that with orders coming from different customers coming in and failing. So let's look at what happened to these transactions. So we're going to an XML purchase order that came from Raintree with a particular purchase order number. And we see that the message was failed to deliver to the process API. And let's look at the other failures that have happened at the same time. Let's look at this 850 that came from Orange Tree, which is another customer. And it basically pretty much failed with the same issue in the data processing. So what we're going to do is, so the process API that was supposed to receive the translated payloads was not responding, and hence these transactions failed after a few retries. And we are now seeing that this API, which was earlier down, has been started back up since the original failure as the underlying problem was solved. So the operational users at Mythical can now go to the transmission activity page and filter the transactions by failed status. And there are 5 transactions that have failed, and they can either reprocess them or replay them one by one using this experience here, or they can select all the transactions that they want to reprocess and click replay. And they have the opportunity to confirm that they truly want those transformations to be replayed. And I go ahead and click confirm. Now that I know the process API is now up and running, so these transactions should get reprocessed successfully. All right, now we are back in the message level view, and we were looking at 5 of these transactions, 5 of these messages that came from these partners have been replayed successfully. And you can see that this is actually a result of a replay action. And you will also see the transmissions that have been replayed at least once, having this flag that indicates that these messages were replayed by somebody at some point in time for a valid reason. We're going to go into one of these purchase orders. So we'll pick the 850 EDI purchase order that came from this customer Orange Tree. We can now see the purchase order number and everything. So now we have the full end-to-end translation and delivery of the message successfully happening now that the process API is back online and running. So here is our EDI data that came in, and here is the translated JSON message that was sent to the process API, and eventually this would have created an order in SAP. If we go to the Slack, we see the order notifications coming for the messages from these customers that originally failed in Partner Manager are now successfully processed and creating orders in SAP. And back in Partner Manager, we are in the replayed instance of that message. And from here, you can navigate to the original transmission that initially failed. And in the original transmission detail page, you actually get to see that the message was originally received at so-and-so time, and it failed at 12:30 because we were not able to reach the process API. And at 12:39, there is someone that has replayed that message. And from here, you can also navigate back to that replayed instance of that message, which was successful. And you can also go into the message level view for individual transactions like orders or invoices contained within that transmission, and look at the history and the pre and post translated data for those individual messages as well. And another thing that your platform administrators can do is, from the access management page, they can navigate to the audit logs, select Partner Manager as the product, and select a replay as the action, and apply the changes, and they get to see all the transmission replay actions by each user. So if there is a situation that requires some additional research to understand who replayed and which message, this would be a nice place to look at those user actions from an administrative standpoint. Now that these order messages have been successfully processed into SAP, we're now seeing the outbound purchase order acknowledgements and the shipment and invoice messages flowing back successfully to those partners set up to receive those transactions. And that brings us to the end of this short demonstration of some of the new features available in Anypoint Partner Manager. Thank you so much for watching. All right, so that was not a short demo, but still. So I think that kind of brings us to the closing part of this webinar this morning. So there are some resources if you want to kind of take your mobile phones and scan this if you want to further your learning of the product and kind of get some more deep dive perspectives on different aspects of how the product can help your organizations achieve your supply chain transformation goals in general. With that said, I know we are pretty much on time, but I think we can take a few questions from the team, and we have tried our best to answer most of the questions on the Q&A section. But Sarah, do you want to maybe kind of pick a few questions, maybe something that Gary can also answer?
Yeah, sure. So thank you everyone for dropping in your questions throughout this session. We did answer all of them that have come in at least so far in the Q&A tab, but let's also answer some of them live so everyone, we can chat through it. And if anybody has more questions, it's not too late, please drop them in there. So let's just start off with that top question there. For both you, Vijayan and Gary, could you share what the main differences are and advantages when managing B2B integrations with APIs versus EDIs?
Well, I think I can speak on our side is, at least in our legacy systems, it was very dependent on the SOAP APIs, which really required an import-export process, which really delayed our latency, and it even restricted our integration. So for example, prior to our integration with MuleSoft, we have no ability to timely coordinate our inventory position with our Zift app because our inventory controls is in our ERP. In order to build a middleware to support that, the timing just isn't realistic when we're trying to batch our orders to the floor. With the new API integration, we now can integrate that in real time. And we can leverage MuleSoft to help us by creating that middle piece where it just pings it and the inventory is just getting updated to MuleSoft readily. And then Zift just pings it when it needs to. But what we found is that, the SOAP model is old. I think the other thing I would add is that EDI is a standard, but one of the problems with EDI is about 75% of the fields in EDI are optional, and only about 20% or 25% are mandatory. What that's created over the last 35 years is a mess, because how trading partners leverage that optional data is significantly different from customer to customer or trading partner, which created huge overhead in our development cycle. With the ability to leverage our endpoints, we can modify and make those changes so rapid that it just almost is indistinguishable in our new model. Whereas in the old model, you had to literally map that data in a very sophisticated way that caused a lot of overhead. So for us, it's really been a game changer because of that.
Great, thanks, Gary. Vijayan, is there anything you want to add to that?
Not much. I think Gary covered a lot of grounds, and we responded with a blog post that we published a while ago on this same topic of how we see APIs and EDIs coexisting. Like if you want to expose REST API endpoints, receive JSONs and XMLs, which we definitely are seeing as a trend. So which is why the kind of for some of our philosophical thinking and the demo that we showcased how the broader universal API management capabilities of MuleSoft can play a big role in changing the way in which organizations have been interfacing with their external partner ecosystem.
Awesome. So if you want to check out that blog post that Vijayan mentioned, if you go to the Q&A tab, it's the first question on the list. There is a link that Vijayan responded to with. Let's take the second question here. Gary, you actually already answered this in the presentation, but perhaps you can provide a little bit more color. Can you share a priority next project for Mad Engine using the Partner Manager tooling?
Yeah, I think for us, the biggest one is our asset management system. We currently have 5 independent point-to-point integrations. So part of our annual operating plan for 2024, we've budgeted to build a new endpoint that Nuxio, which is our asset management system, will integrate with the middleware, or basically an enterprise service bus that we're going to stand up that will expose the data that we need in all of our downstream apps strategically, which will all be managed between the MuleSoft and asset management bridge. And then that data will be exposed, which now will be a many to one. And that gives us so much more control and ability to integrate how that data gets shared in our downstream applications that are critical to our business. Next would be the D365. And actually, as we were going through the demo, we have a lot of ways where we can literally take all, because Zift kind of consumes orders in two different ways. I really want all orders to be consumed by MuleSoft and then push to Zift, which would standardize how we're leveraging our D365 endpoints, how we're managing that inventory. So again, it would transform and make it more consistent how we're managing data. So it's just constantly looking at how our integrations are working and where we can optimize and improve. And again, it gets back to that speed to market. If I can get visibility and speed to market, then I can be a better vendor to my customer. And as you guys know, happy customers lead to more sales. At least it has in my experience.
Right. It'll be really exciting to see all this come to life, Gary. Thank you. I see some questions about getting access to this webinar afterwards. We will be emailing a recording to our registrants over the coming days. So keep your eyes peeled, stay tuned for that. And let's actually answer one more, if you don't mind, Vijay and Gary. Can one of you pick another one here? There's so many great questions. I'm not sure which one we should do live.
Maybe I'll pick one. So there's a question like, where is the partner information stored in Partner Manager, and can that be accessed using SQL queries? So that's an interesting question. And all of the partner information, the transaction metadata data information is all stored in MuleSoft's control plane, but we do not store the payload, the raw payloads in our infrastructure. It is something that is stored in the customer implementation side. That said, we have a wide range of platform APIs that customers can call to get partner information, your flow information, your transaction activity details. And I think Gary also covered how they're able to leverage some of those things and surface a lot of those information into Power BI for data visualization. So there are a lot of customers using the API to get all the information, send them to Tableau, to Salesforce, to Power BI, and a lot of those tools to kind of keep the B2B transaction information alongside the rest of the enterprise internal data processing things, so they are able to get visualization of the full 360-degree view of customer order processing in a single place.
Yeah, I think that was strategic for us. And I mean, we built that ourselves, but that's the beauty of REST APIs, is that data is available and exposed through the REST API. So we were able to gather that information. So our Power BI is very, very clear. Our CSRs can go in there and very much review by trading partner flow. We're even starting now to do analytics, like what's our turn time. So if we do get in a situation with a customer in instances, we can prove that we actually met the SLA, even though they may be, on their side had a problem. So it's really giving us a lot of both analytics as well as manageability that really is above and beyond what we could do in the old architecture.
Awesome, thank you. And with that, we are over time. We have a couple questions that we didn't answer yet that we'll hang on logged on here and answer on the chat. So hop on there. But with that, we're gonna log off of camera and video. We really appreciate everybody attending today. Thank you. This recording will become available. We'll be sending it out. We hope you have a wonderful weekend. If you want to reach out to us and have any questions, we're gonna go ahead and put the best way to contact us in the chat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye. Take care.
Bye-bye.